Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's weekly Wednesday webinar, our 5-minute brainstorm. We will be discussing today's strategies to pay for long-term care, and today's focus will be through the use of a long-term care life settlement. My name is Chris Orestes. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. To begin, let's just be clear that life insurance policies are an asset with secondary market value. Remember, if somebody has a life insurance policy, they own that policy. It's an asset that has value, and it has become a growingly acceptable asset class for a person who need resources to help them with the costs of senior living and long-term care by tapping into the potential liquidity of that policy through a life settlement. Long-term care life settlements have over the last decade grown into a pretty well-recognized mainstream financial option for seniors looking for another private pay resource. And this is something that has become quite well recognized and accepted by assisted living, home care, and nursing home providers across the United States. Literally millions of dollars of long-term care benefits over the last 10 plus years have been paid directly to care providers through the use of a long-term care life settlement. This has grown to have some pretty significant regulatory support. The National Association of Insurance Commissioners actually has endorsed the use of life settlements as a financial option to help seniors pay for care, and they've cited it as a potentially better option than lapsing or surrendering a life insurance policy for less than what they could get with the market value through a life settlement. The NAIC also cited work that we've done over the years to create the long-term care life settlement and bring it in to the market as a mainstream private pay tool for seniors who own a life insurance policy. So who would qualify for a long-term care life settlement? Well, it's going to be people who have chronic or deteriorating health conditions, loss of cognitive function, loss of ADLs. They have an immediate need for care and a measurable life expectancy that's going to be under 10 years, possibly even terminal conditions. The parameters for a long-term care life settlements are any type of life insurance policy. It can be a whole life policy, a universal life policy, a term life policy with a death benefit of $100,000 or more. Any form of care will qualify. So unlike, say, long-term care insurance, where there may be coverage for some forms of care, but not for others, with a long-term care life settlement, every form of senior living or long-term care will qualify. The process to complete the long-term care life settlement is going to take about 90 days from start to finish. There's no costs whatsoever for somebody to transact a long-term care life settlement. And when they're done, there won't be any more premium payments on the policy either. Also, unlike long-term care insurance, there's no wait period. You don't need to wait 30, 60, 90 days before you can start realizing your benefits. The moment the long-term care life settlement is complete, the funds are available to be paid towards long-term care and senior living expenses. You're not filing any claims. Once you qualify for the life settlement and complete that transaction and the settlement funds are released, there's no claims to file. There's no additional underwriting to have to go through. Once the long-term care life settlement is complete and you are funded, you're able to start making payments to any form of care a person wants at whatever amount is needed on a monthly basis for as long as those funds remain. So let's remember that through a long-term care life settlement, you're actually in a Medicaid qualified spend down. The reason is that a life settlement is the sale of the life insurance policy asset at its market value, its fair market value, to then be spent on care needs. So Medicaid looks at this as a qualified spend down within the look back period. But let's be clear, by Medicaid qualified spend down, that means while you have the funds from the life settlement, your private pay. You're not on Medicaid yet. You're delaying the need to go on Medicaid, and you're staying private pay for as long as possible, for as long as those long-term care life settlement funds are available. So let's say it puts someone in a position where they're able to afford home care or assisted living for 2 or 3 years. They're doing that with private pay dollars. And if they spend all those dollars through on their care, they've spent it down. And it means they can then make a seamless transition to Medicaid. And Medicaid departments across the country recognize the long-term care life settlement as a spend down, and are quick to then approve an application for Medicaid eligibility with the final disposition of that life insurance asset having been disposed through the life settlement, long-term care life settlement. The tax treatment for a long-term care life settlement for a person who is diagnosed with chronic condition, needing chronic care, or possibly even a terminal diagnosis of 2 years or less of remaining life expectancy, the proceeds from the long-term care life settlement are tax-free. Also, it's important to note that the proceeds from a life settlement in general, anything received at or below what has been paid in premiums for the history of the policy, are also tax-free. So let's say somebody who has 2 ADLs or more, needs to move into an assisted living community, wants to access home care, does a life settlement, and is looking to start paying for care pretty much immediately. The proceeds are going to be considered tax-free. But let's say they do a life settlement and they're not quite yet at a need for chronic care. They're not terminal, but they've spent $100,000 in premiums on a policy and they receive $100,000 for their settlement. That's $100,000 tax-free. Anything at or below what's paid in premiums, which is considered their basis in the policy, would be tax-free. So the market for long-term care life settlements is quite significant. In 2019, there was $4.5 billion of life settlements completed in this country. People are learning about life settlements every day. They're seeing commercials on TV. They're reading about it. They're hearing about it. And not just from insurance agents or financial advisors. They're hearing about it from attorneys. They're hearing about it from accountants. And they're hearing about it at assisted living communities, with home care operators, at nursing homes. It has become very well known that a long-term care life settlement is a way to help people pay for care. And that market is growing every year. And with over $200 billion of life insurance policy death benefit owned by seniors across the country who could potentially qualify for a life settlement, but who are in danger of lapsing or surrendering a policy, the outlet of a life settlement overall, or specifically a long-term care life settlement, becomes an important piece of information as part of estate planning, financial planning, and long-term care planning. There's certainly a growing need for private pay dollars to help people take on the costs of very expensive costs, by the way, of assisted living, home care, skilled nursing, memory care, all of which can be funded through a long-term care life settlements. So you can see life settlements are a growing option. This is a growing market with a growing market need, both by the consumer and also by the provider of senior living and long-term care services. So it's important to keep this option in mind for clients, for people in your sphere of influence, to know that if they have a life insurance policy, it could be the means by which they could afford to pay for senior living and long-term care. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today for our 5-minute brainstorm, how long-term care life settlements are a strategy to pay for long-term care. And I invite you to join us again next week and every week for our weekly Wednesday webinar, the 5-minute brainstorm, where we will take on topics of interest and across a wide range of subjects to help seniors and clients understand how to take on retirement, long-term care, financial decisions in their life.